Okay, back with Alanis Morissette. I'm listening to your albums. It always feels like you have this overwhelming desire to communicate. These songs in particular have so many different variations of conflicts, different perspectives. With that desire to communicate, do you really feel understood after everything that you've done?
Sometimes, and sometimes not. But I don't think the urgency is to express, and probably an underlying desire to actually connect and be understood. But a lot of times, it's just gratifying to have someone interpret it in whatever way they want, really.
Right.
So,
are you a very analytical person in terms of your thought process? Because it just seems like it's never like so simple. Your songs are never simple. They always seem very complex lyrically.
I'm pretty analytical, yeah.
I read somewhere that you had been going to therapy since you were 16.
Yeah.
And you have a love of psychology.
I love it.
Why is that? What's the attraction?
It helps me understand, and it helps me return to simplicity, if that can be imagined. The more I understand myself and the complexities, the simpler it seems. And I think that the reason why we're here is very simple. So getting back to that is always a pleasure. And I actually oftentimes do get back to it through being psychologically aware of myself.
And simplicity. Like you probably had that inside, even beyond all the psychological things that you've read. You probably were guided by your intuition.
Yeah. And it leads, psychology oftentimes just leads me back to where I kind of meandered away from.
And spontaneity has been so important to you, hey? Like the way in which you write songs is just like clear and boom. Is there kind of like a, do you even try to understand or analyze that thing, that creative force? Do you know what it is?
It's just a stream of consciousness. Oftentimes it's my soul speaking, or it feels as though it's just being channeled because of how quickly it is created and written. And then sometimes it'll just be my thoughts. But it's all pretty quick, and if the process of writing a song is overly belabored, I usually just stop writing. So I like it when it's quick.
You have a real confessional style, too. It almost feels like an autobiography. Do you think growing up Roman Catholic, that sort of attributed that confessional style of writing?
No.
No?
No, I don't know how confessional it seems. I feel like it's just my speaking a truth, my own truth, and oftentimes writing about things that I'd repressed for a long time. So it may seem like I'm letting something out of a conceptual closet, but it's just my allowing all parts of myself to come out.
So maybe that's a byproduct of like, you say repress, so maybe were you feeling plugged as a person in front of people, and then so this is sort of some sort of conduit for you to go and say all the stuff you never were able to?
Yeah, it's just having felt apologetic about so many different parts of myself for many different reasons, and realizing that I never really had to.
Why? Why did you have to feel that?
Fear. You know, fear of somehow believing that by being vulnerable I was relinquishing my power, and thinking that that was the case when it really wasn't. And a lack of acceptance and a general lack of compassion in certain environments that I was in that didn't provide a safe environment for me in which to just be honest and very real.
Did you have to like learn to be compassionate to yourself too?
That was the first thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's first.
I was speaking with Sheryl Crow, and she was talking about just her process, and she was saying that she's really had to sacrifice relationships for her art. Her art is like mega, so important. And it seems like you draw so much inside of your thoughts and your ideas in your life. Do you find that you have to really protect that inner artist?
I feel like my most inspired moments are when I am alone and when there's silence, but that doesn't mean that I have to exclude friendships or relationships in my life. My challenge is always to integrate and to balance everything, and there was definitely a period of time where my music and the creative process was much more of a priority than anything else, and my life was an example of that, but that's shifted a little bit.
Right. We have a phone caller on the line. Hello?
Hi, this is Sandy.
Hey, Sandy.
Hi. I wanted to ask you about your new movie, Dogma, and do you like acting a lot, or?
Yeah. I did a cameo appearance in a movie called Dogma that Kevin Smith wrote and directed.
You played the part of God.
It's very funny.
How did you go and interpret that? How do you, like, because that's a pretty big thing.
Well, his belief, as is mine, is that we are God. So I didn't have to do anything. I just had to be all these different things that I already was. And
you didn't have language either. Didn't you sort of communicate in a series of pitches and sounds?
Yes, there's no speaking. So
What does God sound like?
like you.
We also have an email, or no, a question, audience question, yes.
Hi. I was just wondering, how do you feel about all your music being put on the internet? Like all your unreleased songs, like Death of Cinderella, No Pressure Over
Yeah.
Cappuccino?
I don't believe in piracy in general, but I think the internet is an amazing way to connect with people directly. And as we speak, figuring out ways to protect artists, so that as best as we can, we can stop that from happening. But I don't mind people hearing my songs at all.
You sing that?
Yeah, I do. I didn't used to. I was afraid of it a few years ago, but now I'm not. Now I love it.
Yeah, you're at the forefront of it. Well, I was just reading in the paper that some record companies are a little nervous about that you moving toward the MP3 thing. But do you see that the whole record company industry, music industry, has to change along with technology?
I think evolution is part of life, and I think that as things shift, it just really requires a lot of openness, a lot of information too. I think the fear comes from the lack of information that may have been out there and is slowly being more able, we're much more able to access the information, so there's less fear.
We're going to take a look at Unsent, and you got it sort of a rap after the first album of being kind of the angry woman. A lot of people fixated upon You Want to Know, although there were many other stories there. But in this particular album, it really feels like you have extended compassion to so many people, as well as a lot of men. In Unsent, it really feels like rejoice of some of your former partners. Did you feel like you had to grow to recognize men's vulnerability?
I think I had to, again, go through initially having repressed a lot of my anger for fear of it being an emotion that wasn't going to be approved of. And eventually the explosion that ensues after having repressed that for a long time. And then realizing that anger in and of itself oftentimes doesn't result in any peace, even if I'm communicating it in a very non-destructive way, whether it be through music or through speaking and not yelling or throwing vases or anything. Oftentimes, if not every time, results in my not feeling very peaceful. So I wanted to take it to the next step, and I realized that I can allow myself to be angry, but taking responsibility for my role in these relationships helped me feel much more peaceful and have a bigger sense of closure.
Cool. Okay, this is Unsent, and we'll be back just for a little bit with Alanis Morissette.
Yeah.